The Detroit Lions have emerged victorious from week one of the 2024 NFL season. In the rematch of the wild card round from a season ago, the Detroit Lions hosted the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday Night Football to kick off their season. And despite the game being a little bit messy for both sides, despite some rust having to be knocked off for both the offense and the defense, overall, I thought it was a very encouraging game for the Detroit Lions, a game in which Jamison Williams finally took a big step forward. The defense started to take some big steps forward. And overall, there was a lot of positive takeaways to have from this contest and really a lot of reason to be excited about this team moving forward. So, taking a look at this game overall, the Detroit Lions won this game 26-20 in an overtime victory and an overtime segment that looked truly dominant by the Detroit Lions. The Los Angeles Rams took an early 3-0 lead through the first quarter. The Lions had 10 unanswered points through the second and went into the half leading 10-3 with an end zone interception by Kirby Joseph being the big play of the half. Both teams scored 7 points in the third quarter, and the Rams scored 10 to the Detroit Lions 3 in the fourth quarter to tie things up. We went into overtime tied 20-20, and in overtime, the Detroit Lions went on an 8-play, 70-yard drive where they ran the ball 8 straight times for a touchdown and ended the game. Overall, I thought both sides of the football for the Detroit Lions had a lot of encouraging signs, but also had a couple of really worrying signs. Taking a look at the box score to start this game, we'll start off with the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford was 34 for 49, threw the ball nearly 50 times last night, which is exactly what we talked about in the pregame predictions. Threw for 317 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Was sacked twice with a quarterback rating of 85.2. Overall, I thought Matthew Stafford played very well. His time to throw had to be less than 2.5 seconds per dropback. He was catching the ball, taking his dropback, and throwing it immediately. The quick game was very good for Matthew Stafford. It was very good for the Los Angeles Rams. And it was a big part of what kept the Rams in that game and a big part of what was, offensively working for the Rams all of Sunday night. When you pass the ball 50 times, you expect to put about 300 yards. Overall, I actually thought the secondary played much better this time around than they did in their game back in the wild card round. I thought the secondary looked a lot better. I thought the rushing game still looked really solid. And overall, I thought it was a strong performance overall by the defense. The rushing attack for the Rams was ineffective, to say the least. 23 rushes as a team for 83 yards, 3.6 per carry, and a singular touchdown. A long run of just 12 yards on the day, and holding Kyren Williams, one of the best and most efficient running backs from a season ago, to 18 carries and 50 yards. That is just 2.8 yards per carry. And the Detroit Lions, without DJ Reader, were able to hold one of the best running backs in the NFL to just 2.8 yards per carry on 18 rushing attempts. As a receiver and as the secondary, the Detroit Lions, I thought were okay, right? You're going to look at this box score and say 34 receptions for 317 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 14 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. And it's going to look really bad, right? But if you go back just a couple of months ago to that wild card round, Puka Nacua put up 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Tutu Atwell was putting up over 50 yards and a touchdown on this exact same secondary. So, yeah, while Cooper Kupp had a career night with a career high in receptions, over 100 yards and a touchdown, and Tyler Johnson had 1 reception where he broke off for 70 yards of run after the catch, overall, I thought the secondary was pretty solid, right? Outside of that 1 missed tackle that turned into a massive play by Tyler Johnson, he was held in check all night. Outside of a couple big plays from Cooper Kupp, a lot of it was behind the line of scrimmage, and a lot of it was within 5 to 10 yards. A lot of it wasn't first down throws. It was a lot of run after the catch, and a lot of the receptions were forced to be really tough grabs, or they were forced to, be really short gains because the Lions defense was aggressive and they were playing really, really well. Over to the Lions side of the ball, Jared Goff was 18 of 28, 217 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Just like Matthew Stafford took 2 sacks for almost the same amount of yardage with a quarterback rating within 0.2 of each other. They were very similar on the night. Jared Goff, I didn't think was playing his best game, but I also don't think he needed to play his best game, right? The Rams are a football team that are coached very well. That defensive line is really strong. The secondary, I thought, played much better than at least I was personally expecting. And overall, I do think that is a really strong Rams team. Like we talked about going into the week, that is a playoff caliber football team, even regardless of missing some of their offensive linemen, even without their number one cornerback. That is a football team that I think will make the playoffs and will see the Detroit Lions again in January. And while Jared Goff definitely had a bad interception and almost threw a second one, when it mattered, Jared Goff had a couple of really nice passing attempts. Jared Goff, I thought overall, was a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket, as you are with a great defensive line around you. But I also thought he made some really nice throws, was able to make that great throw to Jameson Williams down the sideline, was able to pick up the first down even with his legs. And I thought he was not great, but I also don't think he was bad by any means, and of course was good enough to get the Lions the win. The rushing attack I thought was phenomenal. 31 rushing attempts, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns while averaging 5.3 yards per carry with a long run of just 21 yards for the Detroit Lions. So this isn't being inflated by one massive run by David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs. This was a team effort that resulted in one of the better rushing performances by any team in the NFL this week. They were a great rushing team. Yeah, they stalled out a couple of times, but overall they were super efficient, ran the ball really well. Jahmyr Gibbs looked good coming off of a hamstring injury. David Montgomery looked good, especially down the stretch. And overall, there was a lot of encouraging signs from this offensive line and the rushing attack. The receiving game, of course, with Amon-Ra St. Brown having just 3 receptions for 13 yards would look very concerning, but Jameson Williams finally had his breakout day, finally had that 100-yard receiving game with 5 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown, a long of 52, and the deepest passing touchdown for the Detroit Lions in a very, very long time. Jameson Williams was phenomenal. Sam Laporta had 4 receptions for 45 yards in a game that seemed a little bit light for him, a game that seemed like maybe the Detroit Lions weren't looking Sam Laporta's way a whole lot. Still had 4 receptions for 45 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 receptions for 34 yards. And even Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, 3 for 13. Definitely an underrated day and definitely a day the Detroit Lions wants to have better for him. But overall, I don't think it was an awful day. I don't think it was the end of the world for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And of course, going into the locker room with a victory is always going to be a good thing. Going to the Detroit Lions defense, I thought overall they were significantly improved. There's a lot of people that are going to say, oh, the Detroit Lions really struggled. Oh, the Lions defense was just as bad as it was last year. And that simply is not true, right? Taking a look at the team statistics, the Detroit Lions had 76 total tackles, which is a lot of tackles. They had 2 sacks, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the defensive line was all over the place last night. They had 22 pressures on just 51 quarterback drops. That means nearly half the time Matthew Stafford had the ball in his hands, he was taking a hit and taking a shot from the defensive line. They had 7 tackles for loss. They had 5 passes defended and 12 quarterback hits, again, on those 51 dropbacks, meaning a quarter of the time they were hitting Matthew Stafford and a half of the time they were getting pressure on Matthew Stafford. That defensive line played really well overall. I was very impressed with the way they were able to get after the passer. I was very impressed with how they were able to stop the run, and they did all of that without having DJ Reader on the defensive line, right? Aiden Hutchinson had a sack, a tackle for loss, and 4 quarterback hits. Levi Onwuzurike had half a sack and 2 quarterback hits. Kyle Pico had a quarterback hit. Marcus Davenport had 4 quarterback hits. Even Mekhi Wingo, the rookie, got in on the quarterback hit fest. It was a great performance by the Detroit Lions defensive line. They got to Matthew Stafford a lot. They hit him over and over and over again, and it really did impact the Detroit Lions defense. It made the Detroit Lions defense better. It limited the Rams to not very many big plays. Their longest passing attempt of the night was less than 20 yards, if I remember correctly, and their best rushing attempt was just 12 yards. There wasn't a whole lot of big plays for the Rams. And as I said, the only one that happened was the broken tackle by Tyler Johnson that turned into a lot of yards after the catch. But the throw itself was a 2-yard check down. It wasn't a great throw by Matthew Stafford, and I would be shocked if there was a single throw that was over 20 yards through the air that Matthew Stafford threw last night, because those just simply weren't open a whole lot for the Los Angeles Rams on offense. As a kicker, Jake Bates was 2 for 2, 100%, as well as 2 for 2 on extra points. Jack Fox, 4 punts for 230 yards, 57.5 on average. Thought he was pretty good. 2 down inside the 20. Could have been a third if it wasn't knocked into the end zone by the rookie Ennis Rakestraw. But overall, I thought this was a really good game for the Detroit Lions. There's a lot to clean up, right? I think the passing attack has to get improved. I would hope maybe the rushing attack takes a little bit of a step forward to take some more consistency. Pass protection could be a teeny bit better. Of course, tackling in space could work a bit better for the Detroit Lions. But overall, those are small things. Those are fixable things, right? If you were to go into week 2 versus Tampa Bay, you still have a much improved secondary from where you were a season ago, right? Cam Sutton might not make this roster, to be totally honest. Outside of all of the legality things that got him released from the Lions roster, I don't think Cam Sutton starts on this roster this year. And honestly, I'm not sure he makes the roster. If he does, he's right down there with Kendall Vilder as cornerback 6 on this football team, because Carlton Davis is a massive upgrade. He, I thought, had an okay game last night. Terrion Arnold was much better than what we had last season. And his Rakestraw would be a severe upgrade. I thought Amik Robertson was really, really good in the secondary. Brian Branch nearly had himself an interception, and I thought he played pretty good despite playing relatively a new position last night. So overall, going into next week, yeah, there are some things to clean up. Yeah, the passing attack can get better, but I think it comes down to, hey, involve your playmakers a little bit more. Get Amon-Ra the ball a little more often, right? Get Sam Laporta the ball a little bit more often. And I think the offensive woes kind of clean themselves up. And for the defense, I don't think the defense has to improve it very much of anything next week. As much of a hater as I am of Aaron Glenn, I thought he called a really good game. I thought his defense played really well. And outside of a couple of DPI penalties that were, committed by a rookie in his first game on primetime NFL football, the Rams didn't have a whole lot. Outside of those 2 DPIs, the Rams might not have scored a touchdown last night, right? Aaron Glenn, I thought, called a really good game. The defense was flying around. The defense was pretty solid. And overall, I was really happy with how the Detroit Lions looked last night, even against a really good opponent. So with that being said, that is all I have for you guys to say. That is kind of the update. That is the recap of week 1 of the Detroit Lions NFL season. They are 1-0, one step closer to a division title, one step closer to returning to the playoffs, and one step closer to their ultimate goal. But with all of that being said, of course, let me know down in the comments below your biggest surprises, your biggest takeaways, your biggest concerns about this Detroit Lions team. I'm very curious what you guys have to say and what you guys think. But with all of that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.